Anyone that is using spreadsheets still is stuck in 2001. A lot of newer investors, they think in terms of rent and appreciation. They think that's where you make the most money, but it's really the numbers in between all of that.
They think, I'm gonna just buy 5 or 6 or 10 rental properties over the next 10 years. They're each gonna cash flow a few $100s a month, and eventually I'll replace my income.
One short-term rental equals 5 long-term rentals in the sense of just mental capacity and spreadsheets. You can pull up your Schwab portfolio or Robinhood portfolio and see everything, but you really can't do that with real estate. And I figured there has to be a way.
Welcome back to the Hybrid Real Estate Professional Podcast, the show where we arm you with the tools, tips, and perspective to succeed in real estate investing and small business without compromising what matters most. Today, I'm joined by Leah Walczak, founder of one of my favorite new real estate software suites, GemHaus. After years running her own rentals and building a short-term rental management company, she got tired of jumping from platform to platform to try and keep track of her business. So she built GemHaus to pull everything into one place and surface simple real-time insights for everyday investors. We're going to get into Leah's story, the problems she's seeing out in the field, and how she and her team at GemHaus plan to help investors stay on the cutting edge in the modern real estate industry. Leah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a wonderful intro. Thanks, Aaron.
You bet. I know we've known each other for, I want to say, most of 2025, and we've been kind of exchanging communication and keeping pulse on each other's projects. And I've been grateful to be part of some of the research you did and the beta launch for GemHaus. But before we dive too much into the product, I would love to just have you introduce yourself to the audience in your own words.
Yeah. So my name is Leah, and I started this company called GemHaus, which is an AI platform for real estate investors. Prior to that, I was heavily in operations. I actually started my career in Los Angeles selling real estate, and I sold real estate for 10 years and sold about 200 million until I moved over to Phoenix, Arizona, and I saw a niche on the market for the short-term rentals. So I started a short-term rental management company where we managed a lot of Airbnbs and VRBOs, and we would curate the entire guest experience and then manage, and ended up expanding into a full service brokerage. Scaled that very quickly within the first 12 months. Revenue was above 2 million just in the first 12 months, and then did that for another 3 years until I ended up exiting earlier this year. And that's when I truly was heads down building our software platform, GemHaus, which you were a part of during the beta launch and asked a lot of questions. You gave really great feedback. So we just launched October 1st and have been rolling since then.
Congratulations on the launch and also the prior success with the short-term rental business. And from what I know of your story and what you just shared, you have a range of perspective from kind of long-term rentals. Short-term rentals are not easy to run. They're not easy to buy and sell or to understand, right? They're really kind of fully functional businesses with a lot of stuff going on. So between that and all the market research you did, I am very confident that you really understand today's real estate market, which is a really interesting time to be a real estate investor. So I think, first and foremost, I'm curious, what was the initial problem that you saw that you wanted to solve with GemHaus?
Yeah, as a operator and prior investor myself, there was a huge gap in the market with the different types of portals that were out there. It felt like everything was scattered and living in their own little silos, and you just really didn't have a grasp on how your portfolio was performing in any real time. So I realized we have to fix this. This is just crazy how inefficient the real estate market is for investors. And you can pull up your Schwab portfolio or Robinhood portfolio and see everything in any given time, but you really can't do that with real estate. And I figured there has to be a way. So started building it.
So it's kind of like trying to emulate the experience of how people feel when they're looking at a stock portfolio, or they get kind of real-time analytics on how their different positions are performing and where in real estate, it's a little different because in stock, you don't have any real control over the outcome. But in real estate, you have a lot of influence over, hey, this house, maybe it's below market rent, or maybe maybe it is appreciating very quickly and you have a ton of equity that you could tap into. There's all sorts of insights you can extract that you might be able to act on. But if you don't know about them, then you won't be able to act on them. Is that kind of the vision?
Absolutely. I don't think I could say it better myself, honestly. That's exactly it. There's a lot of data points and just insights that investors are missing every day. And if they acted on it quicker, they could save thousands of dollars. And yeah, that's exactly the reason that we built this.
So what are some of those kind of key performance indicators that you guys track? And then also, is it like you log in and I've seen behind the scenes a little bit, but to describe to the audience, like dashboards, like what is the visual experience of using this?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a lot of different types of data points and insights. So you can see anything from kind of the high level, just like market value and equity, down to your personal transactional trends, expenses and income, and where you can adjust things here and there. And I would say, like, one of the biggest insights that I think that a lot of investors miss is really debt to equity. A lot of newer investors, they think in terms of rent and appreciation. They think that's where you make the most money, but it's really the numbers in between all of that, right? So if you can refinance one of your properties, you could save potentially, thousands of dollars within just a year itself, just for repricing your capital on your property.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like at the beginning of most people's journeys, they think, I'm going to just buy 5 or 6 or 10 rental properties over the next 10 years. They're each going to cash flow a few $100s a month, and eventually I'll replace my income. And what happens over time is that as markets appreciate and you have all this equity that kind of gets trapped in there, you start to look at, hey, actually, maybe this equity is not being put to its highest and best use, trapped in there. And maybe if I access some of that and either buy more properties or diversify into something else, then I can get a better return over time. And if you don't pay attention to that stuff, then you could be leaving a lot of potential on the table. So I love that kind of predictive,
that's exactly it.
Yeah, looking around the corner and kind of seeing what could I be doing that I might not otherwise have been aware of. So what kind of data do you guys pull in to illustrate that? So I'm gonna share one other thing that I've always thought about, which is Zillow estimates. So many people put a little too much stake in those algorithms, and I'm just curious, where do you guys pull your data from, and how do you feel confident in the numbers that you're seeing?
Yeah, we're pulling data from multiple different sources and then using our own proprietary data and our own algorithms to come up with the best, truest numbers that we can. Of course, there's going to be certain edge cases here and there where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If there's a beach property that has some weird non-conforming type of units and things, that might be a little bit more difficult. But generally speaking, most properties, we have that true number indicator for the user, so they can feel confident and comfortable knowing that they're getting the most real data, other than just estimates, which isn't terrible, but we have more data than just Zillow.
I like Zillow as a single data point out of many, right? It's always good to cross compare. So do you have just kind of one number that's driven by all the things you just mentioned? Or do you have hey, here's what Zillow says, here's what Redfin says, here's what our internal algorithm says? What is the experience of kind of taking in that data?
So for us, we utilize, public record data, MLS data, our own, internal data. So we utilize different types of data, and then we have, the type of algorithms that's going to either track, depending on the property. Again, if it's some sort of odd case property, we can pull nearby neighborhood type of data versus something that's going to be directly the address, utilizing past data and appreciation and comparable properties. So we take everything into consideration, not just, here's a property with 3 beds and 2 baths, it's going to be this much. We're taking a lot more into consideration to pulling those numbers.
Yeah, broader market data, price per square foot, different comparable sales. And I'm sure for rent too, do you guys have data to help estimate? I think that's part of what I saw when I was using it, is that, hey, there was a very clear indicator of, this is below market rent. You're charging $1,300, but market rent could be $1,400. Those are also like rental comps you pull through as well, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we do have rental comps as well to be able to benchmark the market values for the investor, because we're not just pulling the property value in itself. We have all these other type of data points to be able to have those type of insights to take action on. So whether it be rental data that is trending upward or even downward, you want to be on top of it so that the next time that you are renting it out, you're catching the market very quickly and not missing out on those opportunities.
Makes sense. And who is kind of your ideal customer? Is it the person that's got a handful of rentals? It's kind of grown a little bit too much for them to track on their Excel spreadsheet, or like how you described how you're hopping from one platform to a next? Is it someone who's looking to kind of consolidate the experience so that they can have better insights? Are there short-term rentals, multifamily? Like, what is the breadth of of your target audience?
Anyone that is using spreadsheets still is stuck in like 2001. They need to upgrade to a platform, like ours. So, but more properties will make more sense because that's where more of the pain points comes into play. So, I mean, 1 or 2 properties, you could still use the platform, but generally speaking, people tend to have more of a grasp just mentally on a couple of properties versus, say, 10 or 20, even 50 properties. Mentally, you can't just retain all of the data and stay on top of it, especially if you're a working professional and you have other jobs. You really want to have something that is going to be collecting all of that information for you in one place, so that you know what to do and you're not waiting until the end of the year in tax season, having your bookkeeper send you all of the numbers and everything. So truly, short-term rentals have a lot more involved. So I would say that generally, like 1 short-term rental equals 5, long-term rentals in the sense of just mental capacity and spreadsheets. You could be spending $20,000 a month in expenses easily on a short-term rental versus a long-term rental. So to answer your question, I would say short-term rental, long-term rental, multifamily as well, but probably the more properties, it makes more sense for the user.
Makes sense. And so would this also be a tool that would be useful for someone who's flipping homes or doing kind of shorter term holds, or is it mainly for that buy and hold investor across those different asset classes?
Yeah, it's more for the buy and hold investor. If you're short term, of course, you can. I think it would be great to be able to keep track of your properties and the market values as you're flipping. But there's not really like we don't have tools for flipping or tracking the timeline of when they're going to be complete. But it's great for watching the debt versus the values and preparing it for the market.
Yeah, and I will say, having participated in the beta and used it even after the launch as well, it is one of the smoothest UIs that I've seen. And, that does mean a lot, especially like you said, for that busy professional. I've got a day job, I've got young kids. When I go to look at the portfolio, I want it to be a smooth experience. I don't want to have to be clicking around and fumbling through, even just being easy on the eyes and being able to track and follow different menus and stuff. Like it feels really good to use. And I think I alluded to this earlier, but one of the things I admired most about getting to know you and also just watching you build this product is just how thoughtful you were about gathering information from actual investors, right? Yeah. Like you didn't just build what you think people want. You actually went out and validated that. And even if I recall, to the extent you're willing to share, you kind of got pretty far and then you even pulled back and kind of went back and reinvented some of the back end in response to some of that feedback. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
if maybe you can share, I think you have a very unique perspective because of all those conversations and all that research you did. I wonder if you can share some of the most interesting things you learned in that discovery process, and then also kind of how that informed what is now GemHaus.
Yeah. So when I started building, and this could be a very long-winded answer, but
That's okay.
it's the most fun part is building. So when I started building the product, I knew what I wanted and needed, right? I knew I'm one person, and what I want and need might be different than what other people might want and need. And obviously, when you go to market, you need a lot more people to want to use your product than just yourself. So I launched a beta launch a few months prior to actually launching the product, and you were in one of the beta launches, and selected a handful of different individual investors with kind of different demographics on how many properties they owned and where and locations, and had discovery calls with each one of you and discussed, your different pain points and what you really needed. And there's a lot of pain points in the operation side, and gathering all of that information and consolidating it into, okay, what are we, there's a lot of different things that this beta group wants. Like what's the best move here? So kind of prioritizing different things, and then going back to each beta, asking them, okay, can you take a look? What do you think of it this way? Is this something that you would really want? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want this added? Would you use it day to day? So all of these type of questions are in the discovery and just ongoing discovery calls as well, because the beta launch only has a certain amount of beta users, and sometimes you think, okay, this speaks for everyone. This speaks for all individual investors, when it's really just a very small group. You can only get so many beta users to be giving certain feedback. And then when you launch, you realize, okay, we might need to adjust or iterate based off of the new feedback that we've been getting. So it's definitely a process, and it's more of a painting where you can constantly mold it than anything.
Yeah, I love the way you kind of described it. As you started with, you already had an idea of the problems that you were having, that you wanted to solve from your own experience. Then you went out and got what you hoped was a representative sample, right, of people,
right?
Myself and several other investors, that you said, hey, these people are doing something that's similar to what I believe our users will be doing. You gathered all that information, but like you said, you never really know until you bring it to the full public market what people are going to need or not need. And I just think it's really interesting, just not only from the real estate perspective, but like the business owner perspective,
right?
The cycle of validating a product. And especially you're entering a pretty crowded field, right? There's a lot of software suites and services for real estate investors. But again, that's why I applaud you for being as thoughtful as you were about making sure it was fully baked and thought through before you actually brought it to market. And you've been live, you said, so October 1st you launched. At the time of this recording, it's October 28th, so almost a month. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned after going out of the beta and into the public sphere?
Oh, that is a great question. Lessons learned. You can never launch too early. You really can never launch too early, because no matter how many times you iterate prior to launch, you're going to continue to iterate after launch. So you can never launch too early. And I think, like you said, how thoughtful we were with the design and the product itself. It is amazing. And I've heard from, other founders that have been repeat founders that I'm in the top 1% of product, but it goes back to, you have to launch to see what people really need and want, versus just building and perfecting a beautiful product. Because really, when you launch, it should be messy. It should look probably like crap. But also real estate professionals, again, it is in a crowded space with a lot of other different software. So you do have to differentiate yourself. You do have to make it a bit more refined, and gain that trust from that individual investor community.
Yeah, I don't think the iteration journey will ever end, right? Not if you're doing. I mean, you kind of have to innovate and iterate, or likely fade, right? Because everyone else in the field is going to be continuing to do their own research and their own improvements and their own enhancements. AI, a lot of these kind of legacy tools that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, now they're revitalizing themselves with all these applications of AI. And so I'm sure it's a bit of an arms race to try and compete with all the different features and functionality. And to your point, it's like once you go live, then you start to get more and more feedback. And if you have a responsive team that's really paying attention to that feedback, I'm sure you can continue to kind of build on top of that and try and meet people where they are. Do you have a full kind of product team, or like what is the team behind the software?
Well, me first and foremost, as a solo founder, and I have my founding engineers and a team of engineers and a product designer. So we will be growing very much in the near future, but for now have been sprinting very quickly ahead. So it's just right now, speed is our strength, and I don't want to slow us down if we don't have to. So we've been just rocking and rolling with a very small team.
That's awesome. So now I want to get a little into just like the business owner journey, because you had a business before that you built, scaled, and exited. Are you a serial entrepreneur, or was entrepreneurship in your family and your blood, or how did this happen?
I know. I think I was just born with like this rebel DNA. I don't know where it came from. But I do have, I guess, a bit in my dad's side of family. When they moved over from Poland, they actually started a waste management company. So that's very entrepreneurial, in itself, and starting in a place that you don't know at all. And then I guess I did that throughout my entire life. I actually dropped out of school after a couple of years, just because I really wanted to get started. I wanted to just start building right away. I wanted to get out there and explore more than what school was really teaching me. I felt like that was kind of holding me back. So as a sales agent, you really are your own business. I would say that a lot of agents are very entrepreneurial in that sense. But once I started seeking just kind of other opportunities, that's when I wanted to build, my own company and build my own brokerage, start building a software product. And so I started as an agent and just kind of really started building up my career there. And then once I moved to Phoenix, started to have a little bit more of a different perspective of what I wanted to build and where I wanted to head.
Awesome. Yeah. And being an agent means different things to different people when they picture it in their head. But one common through line that I hear from everyone I talk to is that it is not a predictable, steady job. You have to create your own success, and you do have to be entrepreneurial. And I think some people enter it with the idea that maybe it's a little more standardized than it is, but it can be pretty grueling to get off the ground. Did you have a mentor or someone that kind of brought you up, or that you studied with, and to learn how to create that initial success?
Yeah, with where I started in my career, I think my strength has always been observing and asking questions. And I would just see what would work. And I would also try things as quickly as I could to adjust if I needed to. I think that like speed of just kind of iterating on like what's going to work, what's not going to work. So it's the same, for a product. So it's the same with life. You just have to keep trying what works and what doesn't. And I took courses, for sure. When I started real estate, I was 21 years old. I feel like I was a child at that time, and everything was new to me. So I remember I started door knocking though within my first year, and I didn't even know the area. I was walking around like a dummy. But you know what? I ended up selling about 10 million the first year.
Wow.
And as you know, someone that when I was that young, I was looking at checks and I'm like, this is crazy. Wow. I didn't know I could make, this much money from just selling, real estate. And, in school, they don't teach you those things. They don't teach you to be entrepreneurial. They don't teach you to make your own way. And it's very curated towards a certain path, which is not a bad thing for a lot of people. It just wasn't the right fit for me and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to live my life.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel the same way. I studied entrepreneurship in college, which is ironic because usually you would just go and start a business is the best way to study entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I've worked a traditional 9-to-5 job since I graduated from college, but I've also, as you know, been entrepreneurial on the side.
Right.
And that's kind of the theme of this show is the hybrid real estate professional is someone who leverages, skills, income, knowledge, and connections from their other occupations and uses it to succeed in real estate.
Yeah.
And in your case, I think it doesn't have to be a W-2 job. It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5. You followed the same pattern kind of over and over again. You had proof of concept. You did the door knocking. You got your first check. Then you're like, okay, well, maybe I can replicate this. You validate it with the broader market, and then you try and scale it into a real business. And you've done that now, not one, but two times, complete to exiting. And then now you have a third business. And I'm sure just getting those reps and applying it in these different contexts makes you a much stronger founder and business owner, much more sure of yourself because you've been able to prove these different things to yourself at different chapters of your life. And especially starting kind of at age 20 and 21. A lot of people don't necessarily even get the idea to do these things until maybe a bit later.
Which is fine too, because the great thing about entrepreneurship, you can start at any time. You could be on your deathbed and start something. So it's definitely not the path for everyone. But if someone is interested in entrepreneurship and they have a W-2 job, you can build something on the side. You can invest in things. There's so many options out there available to really anyone. But yeah, I think that it did give me a lot of the confidence because I started so young. It gave me a higher risk tolerance, I think. So when I had started the short-term rental management company, for the first 6 months, I was negative, so, but then I ended up having a pretty high revenue within the first 12 months. So you just have to have that confidence that you're going to get there, even if it's scary in the beginning, because you just have to go for it.
Yeah, I feel like in almost any context, the first 6 to 12 months of a new business, you got to be prepared to weather some emotional volatility, financial volatility, and I'm sure there were plenty of very challenging moments and some that probably made you question what you were doing. So on that note, I'm curious if you could maybe share, we've been talking about all the positives and all the type of success you can see if you put your mind to it, but I'm sure there were some drawbacks or some challenges. I'm wondering if just in general across this journey, if there's anything you're willing to share of moments that you've conquered some fear or pushed past some challenges.
There were so many moments throughout my entire career where I was ending the day in tears. I mean, that happened many times, but I think you grow stronger each time, and you really grow a resilience to that. I would say, like in Los Angeles in real estate, selling real estate, I mean, there were certain deals where I worked so hard to get that deal, and they ended up going with a different agent for whatever reason, and you worked so hard on it just to even get in front of them and whatever it was, and then you're just like you're so frustrated. And when I was doing the short-term rental management company, something new to me was managing people and teams, and growing in that sense. I learned so much because I was going from a independent entrepreneur now to building a company and that had team members and everyone had different roles. So learning how to give some of like tasks to another person, and then also managing them, making sure they were doing a great job. There was a lot of frustrating moments during that. I've had, hired someone that I taught a lot to, and then after, 6 months, they ended up like leaving or whatever it was. Frustrations with that, frustrations with customers that, they end up like going somewhere else after, a couple of years of working together, and you just go through these ebbs and flows a lot. And I think like you have to have good people around you to remind you at the end of the day, like it's not everything that matters. And for me, it's my faith in God, and praying that I get through everything. And even meeting with new people, I ask, like, speak through me, guide me in the right direction, open the right doors. And that is something that really grounds me and gets me through my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it's interesting as an entrepreneur, it's such a personal thing, right? Like you are giving yourself into, it's very different than clocking into a job where you're there to make your paycheck, and maybe you have good relationship with some of your coworkers, but you're not invested emotionally. It's not yours. You don't own all the upside that comes with it and the downside if they fail, right? Like, it's just a very different experience pouring your heart and soul into something. So I can see when you're talking about, I spent 6 months, grooming this person and pouring into them, and then they leave, and it's hard not to take that very personally. And I'm sure it takes, one or two, it takes experience. Like you can't skip that step of gaining that perspective until you actually manage people, until you actually do have to hire, you do have to fire. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like there's no real way around gaining that in the real world.
If you don't, it's not worth it because you're not growing. And I think that anything really worthwhile, you really have to kind of suffer. You have to suffer through certain things and to make it really worthwhile. And otherwise everybody would be doing it, right? And I think that when you know that you're building something that you want or building towards a life that you want, it's always worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. One other interesting thing, so we met through a mutual friend who introduced us on X, right? Social media.
Yes,
and it's an interesting, right. Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? And then he knew both of us independently, and he was like, you guys should meet. And of course we met, and then we immediately realized all these different things we had in common. But what's interesting about this modern world, right, is that social media is a pretty big part of how people get networked and how you distribute information. One thing I've liked about, following you and getting to know you is you actually have a very fluid way of expressing yourself online, right? It's not like for me, I run an academy, I have all this different stuff, and I've struggled sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like super personal and just like go off on the things that are totally unrelated. Sometimes I've been too rigid about this, where it's almost like I express myself in a way that's a little too formulaic. And I just think you have a very good organic voice. And I'm curious, like, I don't know, how did you develop that skill? I feel that's a pretty rare.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I've been practicing refraining myself from posting a lot of the stuff that I normally do, because I think that I would post a lot of random funny things that came to my mind and I thought it was funny and I'd post it, and you start to realize that people remember these things, that's how they remember you. And you want to, I also didn't realize how many like followers I end up gaining kind of quickly over the past year. And I had to realize, I realized, okay, like there's a lot of like top CEOs, like there's a lot of people seeing this potential customers and users of the platform. I need to be a little bit more careful of what I am saying. I don't think that just random 10-second posts that I'm scribbling with my fingers and pressing send, it might not be taken the right way. And so I've definitely started to curate some of my posts a bit more than I used to. I used to be a lot more fluid and just post everything. But now I've kind of reined in things.
It's an interesting observation though, right? Like you said, you're gaining a lot of followers by being organic and fluid and kind of speaking your mind. And then you start to realize like, hey, as a founder and as a representative of this brand, there's certain things you maybe don't want to say or you don't want to be thought of. And at the point about people remember stuff, that is very real. It's a mark on the internet. And it's fascinating how people can dig stuff up so quickly if it's something that maybe didn't register with them.
Even if you delete it, it is not deleted in their mind. It is still there. So.
Yeah. Well, for whatever it's worth, I've never seen you say anything that was a deal breaker for me. I've always enjoyed following you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Same. Yeah, I'm really happy that we got connected on Twitter, and shout out to your friend that commented your name and in one of my posts, and we got connected. It's been so great, and things like Twitter can bring people together so randomly.
Yeah, some of my dearest, friends of the recent chapter of my life have come from kind of cold connections or even maybe just warm intros, whatever it is. And it's pretty amazing. I actually view it as a little bit of both a feature and a bug. The feature is that you can go and meet people. You and I probably would never have encountered each other in, walking around our respective towns because we don't live anywhere near each other. So it's great that you can meet like-minded people and build relationships. The flip side of it is that everyone's in their own little world, and you can insulate and not engage with your local community the same way that people might have. I think we're still largely better off for it because we can grow and innovate and build deeper relationships with people that do have common beliefs and values. But there is a flip side to that coin too. I don't know if you have any perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I just think it is an easy way to meet people across the country or even across the world. And I was invited to that real estate Twitter event gala. Shout out to Real Estate Trends and or Strip Mall Guy. And it was fascinating the amount of people that I met so quickly through that alone. And I would not have been invited to that event if it wasn't for Twitter. So it's fascinating the people that you can meet and where it can take you just through social media alone. But it's also like you have to treat it as though you're meeting someone in person. You have to cultivate that relationship. You can't just send out a post and expect to gain a lot of these type of relationships. You have to put work into it as well.
Yeah, it's a long game. I mean, I can think of several examples in my life. I don't have a huge following. I'm not anybody really, but
it's getting there.
There are people that have followed and, they comment regularly and they ask questions. And then when they do finally, send me a DM and says, hey, I have this very specific question. I've been following you for a little bit. I'll answer, of course. Right. And sometimes I'll even jump on a call or I'll invite them into something that I'm doing that's relevant. And like, that's how I've built a lot of relationships that way, just by like, you have to give and have the attitude of giving before you just try and think of like, oh, what can I take from this person? And the best form in my mind is altruism, right? Which is giving with no expectation of anything in return. And, that served me well in my life. And I'm sure, as a founder, building a personal brand, building a business, that's I'm sure largely going to play out in the market for you too.
Totally. I think connecting, I'm big on connecting people together. If I know that, someone would benefit from connecting with another person, I love introducing people together. And I probably do that daily, if not, every other day or something, because it's helped me so much. I appreciate it when people introduce me to others. And if I can do that and it's helpful towards them and their career or their life, I love doing that too. So I think that's awesome. A little bit of the giving back. altruism.
Absolutely. So what are some, just kind of looking around the corner to 2026, what are the things you're most looking forward to, both in your business and otherwise?
Yeah, in the business, I mean, we're just going to be growing immensely over the next 6 to 12 months, creating deeper integrations and building out more features, making it more robust, and providing for large teams and organizations and firms. So that's for sure my most number one priority is GemHaus and building that out, and but also staying fit and being close to God. Those are my top 3 priorities.
I love it. Like we talked about as an entrepreneur, it's all related, right? Like the stronger you are as a person, the more connected you are, the better you feel, the better you'll be able to pour into the business and serve the people that you built 100%. It to serve. So
yes, you have to feed yourself and your soul and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am a user of the product. I was part of the beta. Leah and her team are extremely thoughtful, and I'm excited to see where it goes too, because like you said, the iteration has only just begun as you hit the public market and start to get the feedback. And so if people want to learn more, sign up, book a demo, whatever way they can reach you, what's the best way to find you?
Book a demo through gemhaus.com, and it will most likely be me providing the demo to you and really discovering more about what your needs are as a investor. So you can book a demo straight through us, and happy to share more information if you just reach out to me as well.
Awesome. And that's GemHaus, HAUS, not HOUSE. So we'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. And a little teaser, Leah and I talked before we hit recording, we're going to do a little product demo in our community as well. So I'll link to that once we do it, and then we're going to get that on the books here real soon.
Very excited for it. Well, thanks so much for the chat, Aaron. I loved this and excited to do the demo and more together.
Sounds good. And we'll have you back on again in the future so we can talk about some of the other stuff that you've learned down the road.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. As you may know, podcasts are very difficult to grow organically. If you're getting value from today's episode, I'd deeply appreciate if you can take 30 seconds to leave my show a 5-star rating and review. This will go a long way to helping me reach more listeners just like you. Thank you so much in advance.